When you think about local government, you probably picture, I don't know, potholes and permits. But a single city council meeting can actually be this master class in operational physics.
That's a good way to put it. It's where high-stakes finance collides with really individual human crises, all in the space of just a few hours.
And we have poured through the sources from the November 17th, 2025 Gilroy City Council meeting. It's a perfect snapshot of what it takes to manage a community that's growing.
Oh, absolutely. We're tracking a major, what, a $14 million financial liability shift. Then there's this really emotional battle over $237,000 in opioid settlement funds.
And all of that is happening against a backdrop of these foundational issues, transparency, development, things that affect every single resident.
So our mission today is to really unpack these core decisions.
Right. So you understand not just what happened, but why these moves from, managing pensions to planning warehouse space are really going to define the city's next decade.
And we begin, as we always do, with the people. It was a night of recognizing new staff, specifically the introduction of Nayeli Martinez. She's the new accounting assistant joining the utility billing team.
And what's interesting here is her story. She actually came over from the city of Santa Clara to Gilroy, and the main reason was to cut down her commute time.
Right.
Now, that's not just a fun fact. It's a subtle sign that the city is actually succeeding in attracting needed talent by offering, well, a better quality of life, or at least better traffic.
Absolutely. And she's bringing 5.5 years of experience with her, but she's also, hitting the ground running. She's already enrolled in accounting courses for the next quarter.
That shows a certain dedication, doesn't it? The kind of career growth and service that, frankly, municipalities are desperate for right now.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this first major pillar, the essential framework of how the city runs. We're talking about openness and planning for actual physical growth.
So the council officially declared November 17th through the 21st, 2025 as Open Government Week.
And this isn't just ceremonial, right? This isn't just a ribbon cutting.
Not at all. This week reinforces commitments that were established by an ordinance way back in 2008. That ordinance created their entire local transparency framework.
And the engine behind that transparency is the Open Government Commission, the OGC.
Right. They function as this crucial advisory body to the council, but I'd say their most important job is reviewing Public Records Act, or PRA, requests.
To make sure the city staff's response is, what, timely and complete.
Timely, accurate, and complete. And what's critical here is that they recently achieved a full commission membership, so they were finally able to catch up on all their 2024 PRA reviews.
That's a good sign. It means the institutional gears are finally grinding through the backlog.
It is. And if you want a direct map of where citizens are actively engaging with their city government, or maybe where some friction exists, you just have to look at the OGC's review of the top 5 workload categories for these PRA requests.
Okay, so what are they?
The list is pretty telling. Number 1 is community development, then fire, finance, city clerk, and public safety.
Community development being number 1, that's the permitting and planning department, right?
Exactly. And the fact that it's consistently topping the list tells you one thing very clearly. The city's growing fast, and development proposals and resident questions about them are driving the highest volume of legal information requests.
That sounds like a signal of institutional strain that's being caused by physical expansion.
It is, and their work plans reflect that. They're focusing on developing a comprehensive training module, which they expect in 2026, and making real progress on translation and interpretation services to improve public access.
So that whole concept of planning and access flows right into the physical future of the city.
It does. The Planning Commission Chair, Manny Bandel, he reviewed the Commission's very busy last 12 months, and he highlighted their dual function.
Okay, explain that dual role, because that's really important for people to understand.
So they act as a decision-making body for the micro-level issues.
Things like specific permits or variances.
Exactly. Conditional use permits, things like that. But they also serve as a crucial advisory body to the council on the big picture policies, like rezoning proposals or updating development standards for the entire city.
And we saw 2 major examples of that future growth in this review. First, industrial development, right? The Heatwave project.
Yes, this is an eyewear company that's expanding its footprint. They're developing 3 light industrial warehouse buildings totaling 120,000 square feet.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty substantial economic and industrial commitment to the area.
It's huge. And then on the other side, you have the residential growth pressure. the Renfu Villa residential project, where the commission recommended approval for rezoning 37.5 acres of undeveloped land.
And that plan is significant. It's subdividing that land into 54 residential lots, including, 40 tract homes and 14 custom homes.
Right, while also strategically preserving a major 17.7-acre area. So this isn't just about adding homes, it's making a fundamental decision about the density and the character of that part of the city.
Okay, so we've moved from the technical planning of future growth, the zoning maps and the administrative structures, to the immense strain that growth puts on a community.
And its social services.
Right. And that strain was felt so acutely during the public comment section. It brought these deeply challenging, high-emotion topics right to the council floor.
Yeah, it really highlighted the sharp internal conflict over how to manage the unhoused population.
On one hand, you had a resident, Anne Marie McCauley, praising the mayor for moving toward exit strategies. She was shifting away from what she called a long-standing unproductive policy of shame, blame, and abatement.
So a signal of a policy shift, maybe, toward compassion and actual solutions.
Maybe. But right after that shift in rhetoric, you get the harsh reality of enforcement. A man named Paul Vonnell delivered this deeply resonant plea to, in his words, put the brakes on RV towing.
His story was powerful. He described his vehicle being towed for what sounds like a completely arbitrary reason, a wet spot underneath it after it had rained.
And it cost him over $1,200 just to get it out of impound.
And the consequence was horrific. He said there was subsequent vandalism. He lost batteries and tires while it was impounded, which cost him thousands more in damages.
That story, it just starkly illustrates the tension, right? Shifting policy toward exit strategies is kind of meaningless if your current enforcement policy is simultaneously pushing vulnerable people into deeper debt and even greater instability.
And if that wasn't sobering enough, another resident, Ron Kirkish, then shared these horrifying drug death statistics straight from the Santa Clara County DA's office.
What did he report?
He said that before 2020, drug deaths in the county were hovering around 100 per year. After a 2020 revision of a program called Bending the Arc, those deaths have just skyrocketed to between 300 and 350 per year.
And he said it was fueled primarily by meth and fentanyl.
Yes. And all of that leads us directly to the council's decision on how to deploy that $237,352 from the opioid remediation settlements. This was a classic data versus passion conflict.
The city staff, they'd recommended a pretty measured approach. Split the funds evenly between two organizations, Carry the Vision and Youth Alliance.
Right, and that was based on their evaluation scores and the goal of making sure both adult and youth services were funded.
But this is where public testimony just completely changed the calculation.
It really did. We heard from multiple individuals in recovery, Mario Gara, Charles Good, Sam Brown, who were all directly affiliated with Carry the Vision's Rooted program.
And these were not just, simple endorsements. They were detailed personal testimonies. They were citing the success of their healing circles, their mentorship, the community support pathways.
Especially for people involved in the criminal justice system and the unhoused community.
Yeah.
Mario Gara, for instance, he emphasized that these organizations provide the essential safe haven for people emerging from, in his words, the madness.
The impact of their testimony, it was undeniable. The council was clearly moved by the proven, localized track record of Carry the Vision.
So they ultimately voted 6-0 to award the entire $237,000 to Carry the Vision. They completely overrode the staff recommendation to split the funds.
And crucially, they also decided to forego the city's ability to claim the 5% administrative fee that they were legally allowed to take.
That's an incredibly rare move for a municipality.
It is. It means they ensured every single dollar of that settlement money went straight to services. They prioritized impact over bureaucratic overhead. That sends a really powerful message.
It absolutely does. Okay, moving now to our third pillar, complex financial management and contracts. Because despite all that emotional crisis management, the city still had to handle some high-level contracts.
And that started with the interim operator for the Christmas High School Aquatic Center.
Right. The city was looking for a 1-year contract with an option to extend while they conduct a broader recreation assessment. And they had 2 strong contenders.
Who were they?
First was a company called Swimming Swan. They scored a 93, bid about $266,000, and offered a 10% profit share. The other was Team Sheeper. They scored an 84, but with a significantly higher bid of $350,000.
So the complication arose when the council members noticed that Team Sheeper, despite that higher bid, actually offered more affordable program pricing and more scholarships for local residents.
Exactly. So the immediate question became, well, couldn't the city leverage the higher score of Swimming Swan, the low bidder, and just negotiate better terms for the community?
That seems like a logical next step.
It does, but that's where the city attorney had to step in with a warning that really touches on the fundamental fairness of government contracting.
What was the warning?
The attorney advised the council against it. Opening negotiations to substantially alter key financial terms, like the profit-sharing model, after the request for proposals, the RFP process, had already concluded would expose the city to legal challenges.
So allegations of unfairness, or maybe even litigation from the other bidders.
Precisely. They would argue the rules were changed mid-game. So the city was kind of forced to prioritize legal compliance and process integrity over potentially getting a better deal for the community right away.
So because of that legal risk, they approved the contract for Swimming Swan, the highest scoring, lowest bidding firm, in a 6-0 vote. They chose process over a possible negotiation win.
That's the reality of municipal legal constraints. Now let's pivot to the general fund forecast delivered by the finance director, Harjo Sangha. This is where we find both the worst and the best news of the entire meeting.
Okay, give us the bad news first.
Sales tax projections are down. The updated forecast showed an average reduction of approximately $400,000 for fiscal year 26 and all the future years.
That's significant dip in ongoing revenue. That puts pressure on city services.
It does. And if we were just looking at that sales tax dip, the outlook for the next few years would be, well, pretty grim. But the good news delivered a monumental financial lifeline. CalPERS, the state pension system, reported an astounding 11.9% investment return for fiscal year 25.
Wow. And that success had an incredible ripple effect, right? It lowered the city's massive long-term financial burden, the unfunded accrued liability, or UAL.
It did. It dropped it from $115 million down to $101 million.
That's a $14 million reduction in future debt. That is enormous.
It's a game changer. This UAL reduction fundamentally changes the city's solvency timeline. Because of that reduction, they can start leveraging their Section 115 pension trust 1 year earlier, starting in fiscal year 28.
Okay, for the listener, what is a Section 115 trust, and why is leveraging it early such a huge win in municipal finance?
Think of the 115 trust as a dedicated municipal savings account. It's a pre-funding mechanism that's set aside specifically to pay future pension liabilities.
So by being able to deposit and leverage funds in that trust earlier, the city saves millions on interest and future payments.
Exactly. Sagaka confirmed that despite the sales tax reduction causing minor negative operating margins for the next 2 years, that CalPERS adjustment and the early trust utilization, it results in positive operating margins indefinitely into the future.
And that shift from decades of financial risk into future positive operating margins, that is the key takeaway. It means they can finally plan strategically.
Yes, and this financial breathing room lets them start leveraging that future margin for crucial needs, specifically increasing the staffing required for a new fire station.
So that's how high finance directly enables public safety on your street.
It is. We also saw 2 other strategic investments. $60,000 was approved for an economic development assessment study, and $12,500 was allocated for election outreach to prepare for the 2026 district-based elections.
And finally, a small governance streamlining point. An ordinance was introduced to amend board and commission terms, shifting all future expirations to odd-numbered years.
Which just simplifies recruitment and avoids having staff juggle term expirations during the intensive election cycle. A smart, practical move.
So what does this all mean for you? This meeting was really a masterclass in the complexity of local governance. It forced the council to operate simultaneously at 2 extremes.
On one hand, they balanced a massive technical financial liability shift, that $14 million pension deficit reduction.
And on the other, they were dealing with immediate, micro-level community crisis intervention, like the deeply personal debates over RV towing and that really wrenching decision on the opioid grant funding.
And the city attorney also provided a quick update. The 2019 Public Records Act litigation at the California Supreme Court. Following the oral argument on November 4th, the city is cautiously optimistic about the outcome.
Ultimately, the tension was palpable. It was between the necessary cold, hard data, the RFP scores, the budget forecasts, the planning logs, and the deeply personal, emotional pleas from citizens.
Especially those people in recovery whose testimony completely flipped a staff recommendation.
And that leads to our final provocative thought for you to consider. How much should an emotional, well-spoken testimony, like the one that secured the full $237,000 opioid grant, overriding a purely data-driven staff recommendation, how much should that override the structured, quantitative plans of professional city management?
It's the constant challenge of governing with both a calculator and a heart. Keep tracking how these large financial shifts and contract decisions unfold in the coming year, because those long-term budget successes are what will truly define the future services available in your community.